Hello and welcome back to the Watford Way. Today, slightly earlier than usual because I've made plans for this evening. So much to discuss once again. I'm repping a Troy Deeney top here. Props to you if you can guess what game this celebration is from. So much to discuss. We've got Giorgi Chakvetadze and the situation going on with him. Sandi Lovric from Udinese, a big development in that story potentially as well. And Denys Popov, the 26-year-old Ukrainian centre-back, it emerged yesterday that Watford hold interest in him. So a lot to dive into. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day as per usual. I think we'll start straight away with the story around Georgie Chakvetadze, arguably Watford's most prized asset, our most prized possession. Georgie clearly was going to have interest at some point during the summer transfer window. It was a couple of months ago now, I think towards late June, where it emerged Valencia may be a suitor for his signature. And within the last 24 to 48 hours, that has really now developed into serious interest. I've got to be careful with my words actually when I'm talking about this story, but I think with Georgie, there's two sides to the coin here. There's two different sides to the story. You have Watford and the Watford Observer trying to feed one narrative, and then you have Spanish outlets associated with Valencia and Georgian outlets associated with Georgie also trying to force a slightly different narrative. And for me, I think you can take different bits from both sides of the story. So the Watford Observer coming out today essentially suggesting that Valencia haven't yet made an approach for George's signature, and that the reported 10 million euros, it would be a lot higher for Watford to accept if they did make an offer. Whereas you have the Georgian side and Geo Team, who are the most reliable organisation when it comes to Georgian football. They've suggested that Georgie has actually agreed personal terms with Valencia already on a 4-year contract. Now, for me, if I was going to say which side do I believe the most given the current situation, I'm actually more inclined to go with the Georgian side of things. Now, Geo Team have been around for a very, very long time. They've broke major stories with Georgian footballers. They were, in fact, the first outlet actually to report that Georgie was signing for Watford himself. And for me, the connection they have with the player here plays into a lot of who you should trust in this situation. And the reason I'm saying that is essentially because Geo Team themselves as an outlet have been quite public in their relationship with Georgie. They've been out for meals with him in central London. They've been photographed with him many times, even at Vicarage Road before games. And for them to come out and suggest he has agreed personal terms, from my perspective, giving an educated guess, I would say they've actually spoken with the player and he's fed them that information. Watford, of course, have a relationship with the Watford Observer. They're the local journalistic outlet that we as Watford fans read. Watford will be feeding a certain narrative to them. And of course, Watford want their best player, their prized possession, to be perceived positively in the media. They don't want him to be rumoured with a move to Valencia. So from the Watford side of things, from what's been reported today from Adam at the Watford Observer, they're saying no offer has been made. And it appears no personal terms have been agreed with Georgie either. So really interesting actually to read both perspectives in this story. As I said, for me, I would probably believe the Georgian side of things more here. I think Geo Team as an outlet, as I mentioned already, are really reliable. They broke news with Georgie before when it comes to him signing with the club. They've broken stories about his injuries before as well at Watford. So yeah, for me, I would take everything you read at face value. Stay kind of in the middle when it comes to these stories, and hopefully it will be resolved in the next couple of weeks. Of course, the transfer window shuts on September 1st. So what are we today? August 19th. So not too long to go with this story. But yeah, some interesting developments with Georgie Chakvetadze. Valencia and Spanish outlets, including Geo Team, suggesting his agreed personal terms. From the Watford side of things, it's pretty quiet, but we had an article earlier today from Adam at the Watford Observer suggesting there's been no contact between the two clubs whatsoever. And I think I have to make this clear as well. It's very common in football for players to agree personal terms without any club-to-club approach taking place, and sometimes that can be viewed as tapping up. I'm not suggesting that's the case with this transfer, but a high-profile example of that would be Morgan Gibbs-White. This summer, actually, of course, he was a Nottingham Forest player. Tottenham, by all accounts, activated his release clause. The Forest owner suggested they spoke to him before speaking to the club. So it's quite a murky area to speak about, really. And as I said, I'm not suggesting that's taken place here, but it's very common in football for clubs to speak to players before they've even approached the parent club the player is owned by. So a situation that's very much still developing, and we'll have to keep an eye on how that pans out really towards the end of the transfer window. For me, I would love to, of course, retain Georgie at the club. By all accounts, he's out until mid-September with this toe injury that's been niggling at him since the end of last season. But if we sold Georgie and brought in an adequate replacement, which is my issue, I'm not sure I trust the Watford recruitment to bring in a replacement that could fill even one of his boots. Yeah, it's hard for me. I think I went into this transfer window expecting to lose maybe all of our key assets. At the moment, Losers staying, that's one. Kwadwo Bar is staying, that's two. Will Georgie stay? I'm inclined to think at the moment, no. But of course, it depends on Valencia, their sales, and how much they're willing to offer to Watford. So I'll stop waffling on Georgie. I'll leave that one there, but a very interesting story nonetheless. And as I said, I wouldn't pick sides in this. Georgian report suggesting one thing, Watford report suggesting something slightly different. I'm kind of trying to stay as balanced as possible in the middle. Another player Watford have been linked with this window is Sandi Lovric. He's a 27-year-old Slovenian international, currently at Udinese, valued at 8.5 million euros on transfer market. He's a midfielder, which is, of course, you could argue, a position of need for Watford at the moment. Imran Louza, unfortunately, picking up that red card towards the end of the Queen's Park Rangers game, which means he's, of course, suspended until Millwall away mid-September. So, yeah, Watford, whilst we have a lot of players in their midfield positions, we've got Louza suspended, Duomo injured, and the depth options, in my opinion, aren't great. Sissoko and Kayembe and Tom Delhi can, of course, do jobs in the area. Would I want them starting consistently this season? I would argue no. So Watford linked with Sandi Lovric from Udinese. By all accounts, the deal was set to be completed earlier this week, if you're to believe the reports on social media. However, a spanner was thrown into the works. A couple of days ago, Udinese, out of nowhere, announced him as vice captain of the club, which I found to be a very intriguing move, actually. Now, the Watford-Udinese relationship is quite controversial, you could argue, in the wider footballing world. Some clubs who operate on their own without multi-club structures view it as an unfair advantage in the transfer market. Watford have been tarnished with that brush for many years now, even when back when we owned Granada and Udinese at the same time. It's been kind of a name, whenever you speak about Watford in the media. And again, making use of our relationship here with Sandi Lovric, I think personally what's happened here with the vice captain situation is that the interest is probably there from Watford. You have to understand João Lucanani the Pozzo family, Valon Barami, they're all essentially part of the same group. Whilst Watford may say Gianluca is working entirely at Watford, his focus is very much on us. I'm sure he still deals with Udinese signings and he still speaks with their senior management and representatives. So I imagine this is a deal that was close. Being named vice captain of the club, however, has thrown a massive spanner in the works. I think for me, what's happened here is it's probably the Udinese manager and senior team saying, if you're going to take one of our best midfielders, we're going to name him as vice captain and you better give us a quality replacement, because from a comms perspective, from a media perspective, if Udinese are going to name someone as vice captain and then sell him a couple of days later to their partner club, their own fans will be very unimpressed. So yes, Sandi Lovric, 27-year-old Slovenian international, by all accounts has been described more as a number 6, although in advanced areas he seems pretty adept and capable as well. It seems like he can hold possession and dictate play quite comfortably, which means if we are going to miss Imran Louza, someone of Lovric and his ability and calibre, most importantly, would be very important to this Watford side. He made, I believe, the second or third most appearances for Udinese in the Serie A last season as well. So a player of high quality, high caliber, a good age, coming into his prime as well. Hopefully we can get this done. The Watford Observer is saying they still believe this could happen, although Watford are of course speaking to other players and other representatives if this does fall through. So again, a very intriguing situation. It's never simple with Watford, is it? So Sandi Lovric, named vice captain of Udinese just a few days ago. Will he still join the Hornets? That is the question on everyone's lips. I really hope he does, because when I saw his name being touted, I did a little bit of research and he does seem like a real quality acquisition if we can get this one over the line. The next player to discuss, and the final player actually today, unless something major breaks while I'm live with you, is Denys Popov. Denys Popov, the 26-year-old Ukrainian centre-back. He's been at Dynamo Kiev his entire career. 96 appearances, I believe, for Dynamo at this stage, which isn't as many as I anticipated given his age. I believe it's been tarnished by a few injury issues throughout his footballing career as well. But another very interesting link. Now, this emerged yesterday, funnily enough, via an WD18 video. David Cameron Walker dropped his name in the middle of a video, and a few Watford in the know accounts come out after the fact and suggested this deal was close to being completed. Ukrainian sources, however, are stating that there is no interest in Watford and the deal, as far as they're concerned, isn't happening. So that's what the Ukrainian side of things are saying. By all accounts, once again, he looks like a fantastic addition to the squad. He's been described as a better version of Mati Polak, a destroyer, if you will. If you look at actually how he looks physically, yeah, he looks like a real hard man. He reminds me of like a Juraj Kuchka when he was at the club. Of course, different positions, but a proper destroyer, a big physical presence, big in the air, a threat from set pieces, if you will. So by all accounts, once again, this looks like a great deal for Watford. I believe he's valued around €4 million on transfer market and has 1 year left on his Dynamo Kiev contract. So yeah, an interesting link. It kind of come out of nowhere, first via this WD18 post-match pint video. Lou Orns and several other accounts on Watford's social media confirming interest as well. So Denys Popov, 26-year-old Ukrainian, potentially joining Watford. Although, as I said, I'll try to get up the tweet actually from the Ukrainian account. If you bear with me one moment. See, I'm not very prepared doing this in the afternoon. Do bear with me. I'll try and find the Ukrainian side of things here. They're suggesting that the player, as far as they're concerned, is not going anywhere. So here we go. I'll just bring this up on screen for you now. Allow. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Ukrainian side of things. You can see on your screen here, this is coming from quite a big Ukrainian account, actually, Zoria Londos. They're the number one source for Ukrainian football in English, which is what we love to see. I hate using Google Translate to try and transcribe foreign articles, but they're suggesting this is the first kind of Denys Popov to Watford clarification in the Ukrainian media. Tata Take reporting this morning that as per their sources that are close to Dynamo Kiev, Popov is not going anywhere. So as far as Ukraine are concerned and sources close to Dynamo Kiev, we are not signing Denys Popov. So yeah, I don't know what to make of this one. It's interesting. So yeah, I feel like there's still a lot of movement to be had as we approach the end of the transfer window. I think it will very much be a one in, one out strategy, potentially. I think that's been suggested many times, where if we were to bring in another midfielder, it would maybe require someone else to leave. So if Tom Deli or Kayembe, for example, received an offer, maybe we'd then bring in Sandi Lovric. The centre-back situation is slightly different because we're lacking bodies in that area anyway. But yeah, plenty to talk about. Going back to the Georgie story as well, I do find it fascinating from the player's perspective because he's clearly briefed Geo Team, who are the most reliable Georgian outlet, that he has agreed personal terms with Valencia. But it's well known actually within football that Valencia themselves have issues financially. They're trying to fund a new stadium currently as we speak, and that's taken many years now. I don't think they've spent over 10 million euros in the window for well over 4 to 5 years. So for them to go out and sign Giorgi from Watford, it's going to take a big transfer fee. Now, Geo Team, who put out the story originally, suggested that fee would be 10 million euros, which is about £7.5–8 million. That doesn't quite seem enough to secure Georgie. Other Watford accounts, including the Watford Observer, suggesting that fee could be upwards or closer to £15 million, which would be about 16–17 million euros. So yeah, 3 stories there: Giorgi, Lovric and Denys Popov. Keep an eye on social media. So much is going to happen over the next few days and weeks. Before I go, I would like to speak a bit more about the Queen's Park Rangers result. I was there on Saturday. I thoroughly enjoyed my day, of course. It was great to see Paolo get his first win in front of the fans. It was much needed as well, because I hate to say it, but if he'd lost that game, knowing Gino and what our fan base is like generally, the pressure would have started to mount on him. We don't necessarily have a really easy run of fixtures. We've got Swansea away this weekend at 12:30 p.m. kickoff. The next match after that is Southampton at home, and then I believe we go into the September international break. So yeah, it was vital, I believe, that Paolo at least didn't lose that game. I think I would have been content with a draw myself. I would have been content actually with a draw away at Charlton, but that got snatched away from us at the death, of course. So yeah, delighted for Paolo. The first half performance particularly I found extremely impressive. I still think there were holes that became more apparent, especially in the second half. The midfield, whilst Kayembe and Sissoko had quite good performances, I felt, generally, I still felt we were quite exposed in them areas. QPR, as soon as they were more aggressive in that second half and started to press higher, looking for that equaliser, there were so many holes and pockets in that midfield. It was very easy for them to bypass us just by 1 or 2 balls over the top. Defence for me was where I was most impressed. I thought Kevin Caben, God, he needs to stay fit for as long as possible. He's the most impressive centre-back at the club currently. James Abankwah looking quite astute once again. Mark Boller hasn't done anything particularly wrong so far since he's joined Watford. And Jeremy Ngakia, goodness me, he looks like prime Cafu at the moment. The guy is an absolute machine. So yeah, defensively, we look good. We look sound. I'm happy with that. My concern is midfield, and especially with that red card to Imran Louza. And The red card for me, I watched it myself in real time. It happened pretty much right in front of where I was sitting, actually. I had a pretty good view of the situation. And whilst the challenge looked bad, I personally don't believe there was any real intention or desire to hurt that QPR player. So, yeah, at the time, I didn't think it was a red. I called it a strong yellow in my post match reaction. Seeing it back now several times on a replay, I'm inclined to believe it probably is a red card. I'm surprised Watford didn't appeal it. The Watford Observer reporting yesterday that Watford opted not to appeal the decision on review, because I felt there was a chance potentially the punishment could have been reduced down to maybe a game or 2 games, if that's even possible. I'm not sure. But yeah, to lose Loser for a month essentially is really gutting, and he was really instrumental actually in that QPR performance. He was really vocal in midfield. I watched Loser for a couple of minutes, instructing players where to stand. He was quite literally pointing at spaces, telling players where they should be at each time. So yeah, devastated to lose Imran for as long as we will do. But yeah, hopefully we bring in Sandi Lovric this week, or equally a replacement of his standard, because as I said, whilst Musa, Edu, and Tom Delly are good football players, I don't want to see them starting every single week for Watford. They all have their own individual attributes, don't get me wrong, that are useful in matches. But long term, if the aspirations are to achieve the playoffs, I don't think that's the right way to go forward. So yeah, an interesting situation. Lee with a good point here, actually. He says if we appealed and lost the appeal, the ban could be increased. That is right. You are very right there, Lee. I just felt, for me, I've seen far worse challenges at Vicarage Road and at other football matches go unpunished. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I assumed Watford wouldn't appeal it, but I felt I felt Imran Loser was trying to win the ball. Of course, his studs were up, they were showing. But yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? It's a shame to lose Imran for so long. Yeah, interesting. Joachim Eriksson, hello, from a Watford fan in Sweden. Hello, welcome to the Watford Way. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, a very quick live stream today. Just wanted to cover really the 3 main transfer stories around Watford at the moment. Giorgi to Valencia, Sandi Lovric potentially signing from Udinese, and Denys Popov, that's emerged in the last 24 hours, potentially joining from Ukrainian side Dynamo Kiev. So I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time. Swansea away this weekend. I may be here for a watch along. I will confirm closer to the time. It's on Sky Sports Red Button if you are watching in the UK, of course. And yeah, looking forward to that one. Fair play to all the Watford fans going up to Wales for the early kickoff. You'll have to wake up very, very early, but hopefully the boys will bring you back all 3 points. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And before I forget, actually, we are running a competition on our Instagram page to win the new Watford 25-26 away shirt. I was debating whether to do the home shirt, but I felt because it was so controversial and some people weren't too sure in the design, yeah, we opted to give away the 25-26 away shirt, and that's in partnership with Kingsley Estates. They're a local Watford-based business. They're an estate agent. They opened earlier this year, back in March, and their social content is really fantastic. So head over to Instagram, find the post, and we'll be giving away the 25-26 Watford away shirt later this week. So make sure to enter that one. Okay, I will leave it there now. I do have a tendency to waffle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.